Jack had always dreamed of something more. Life on Earth had become dull. He spent his days working as a mechanic, fixing old ships that barely held together. The work paid the bills, but it wasn't exciting. He wanted adventure, something different. One day, he found an old, rusted ship at a junkyard. It was a wreck, broken engines, cracked metal, and missing parts. But it had potential. Jack saw something in it, a spark of hope. The ship was cheap. Almost too cheap. Jack didn't ask questions. He paid for it and had it towed to his small workshop. His plan was simple: fix it, sell it, and maybe make enough money to finally leave Earth. He dreamed of flying to distant stars, exploring unknown worlds. He was ready for anything. As soon as he entered the ship, the smell of old metal and dust filled his nose. The interior was a mess: wires hanging from the walls, broken panels, and a floor that seemed to have been torn apart long ago. But Jack didn't mind. He had worked on worse. He was used to seeing things through the lens of a mechanic, always, looking for how to fix what others thought was beyond repair. For days, Jack worked alone. He stripped the ship down to its basics. It was hard work, but it was familiar. He spent hours in the engine room, getting the old systems to work. There were no shiny parts to replace, just the bare bones of a ship that had seen better days. But Jack had always found beauty in fixing things, even if it meant putting his hands into the dirt. One evening, as he worked on the ship's power core, he heard a noise. It was faint at first, like something moving. Jack stopped, listening. Carefully, there was no one else around. The ship was supposed to be empty. Yet the sound came again, soft but unmistakable. It was a rustling sound, like fabric brushing against metal. His heart skipped a beat. "What the hell?" Jack muttered to himself. He turned off his tools and walked slowly toward the sound. It was coming from the ship's storage compartment, the one he had barely touched. He hadn't thought to open it yet. It was just one more part of the ship that needed fixing. But something told him this wasn't just another broken piece of metal. Cautiously, Jack knelt in front of the compartment. The rusted hatch creaked as he pulled it open. Inside, he found something he didn't expect. A girl dot, at first, Jack thought. His eyes were playing tricks on him. She was lying in the dark corner, curled up like she was trying to protect herself from something. Her skin was pale, almost glowing under the dim light. Her clothes were ragged, barely enough to cover her. She was shivering, her body trembling with cold. Jack felt a rush of confusion, then a strange sense of concern. "Hey, are you okay?" Jack asked, his voice soft but full of uncertainty. The girl didn't respond. Her eyes fluttered open slowly, and when she saw Jack, she flinched, as if afraid of him. She didn't speak, only stared at him with wide, fearful eyes. There was something in her gaze, something that made Jack uneasy. It wasn't just fear. It was something darker, something deeper. Jack didn't know what to do. He wasn't used to situations like this. He wasn't a hero, and he sure wasn't prepared to deal with a stranded alien girl. But something inside him pushed him to act. "Don't worry," Jack said, trying to keep his voice calm. "You're safe now." He reached out slowly, offering her his hand. The girl stared at it for a long moment before slowly accepting his gesture. She let him help her sit up, but her body was weak, as if she hadn't moved in days, maybe longer. Jack had no idea how long she had been hiding in the ship, but it was clear she had been alone for a long time. "Where are you from?" Jack asked, his voice still gentle. The girl didn't answer. Instead, she looked down at her hands, trembling. Jack realized then that she couldn't speak, or maybe she was too scared to speak. She wasn't responding like anyone he had ever met before. She was a mystery. Jack wasn't sure he wanted to know the answer to how she ended up there. He glanced around the ship, his thoughts racing. This wasn't what he had expected. He had bought the ship to fix it, not to rescue a strange girl. But in that moment, as she looked up at him with those scared eyes, Jack made a decision. He couldn't just leave her here alone in this cold, empty ship. "All right," Jack said, standing up. "Let's get you somewhere safe," he gently helped her to her feet, noticing how fragile she looked. She leaned on him for support as they made their way to the small living quarters in the ship. Jack wasn't sure what to do next, but he knew one thing. He couldn't just walk away. The ship had given him a new purpose. one he hadn't planned for, but now he couldn't ignore it. Once they reached the quarters, Jack offered her some water, which she drank eagerly. She still hadn't spoken a word, but Jack could see she was slowly starting to trust him. He didn't know where she came from or what danger she might be in, but he wasn't about to leave her alone. Not now, not after everything he had seen. In her eyes, Jack sat across from her, watching her carefully. The silence between them was heavy, but it wasn't uncomfortable. They both knew something had changed. Jack's life was no longer just about fixing broken ships. It was about protecting this mysterious girl. A girl who had appeared out of nowhere and changed everything. As Jack sat there, watching the girl, he realized one thing for sure. His life had just become a lot more complicated. And for the first time in years, he didn't mind at all. The days that followed were strange. Jack worked on the ship as usual, but it was no longer just a project. With the girl Lyra, as he had started to call her there, his routine had changed completely. He found himself checking on her more often than he cared to admit, making sure she was comfortable and safe. She didn't speak, but Jack could tell she was watching him closely. Her eyes followed him wherever he went, her gaze never leaving him, as if she were trying to understand who he was. At first, Jack didn't know how to communicate with her. She had no words, and her body language was almost alien to him. Would sit in silence, looking out of the small window at the stars, lost in her thoughts. Jack tried to give her space, but there was something about the way she looked at him that made him want to help her, even if he didn't fully understand what was happening. One evening, as Jack worked on fixing the engine again, he heard a soft sound. He looked up and saw Lyra standing in the doorway watching him. She had a strange look in her eyes, something Jack couldn't quite place. It wasn't fear this time, but something more curious. She tilted her head slightly, as if asking a question without speaking. "Are you all right?" Jack asked, wiping the sweat off his forehead. "You don't have to stay in the corner, you know. You can sit anywhere." Lyra didn't answer, but she slowly walked over to a small chair in the corner of the room. She didn't sit down right away. Instead, she raised her hand, and for a brief moment, Jack thought he saw something strange happen. There was a small spark of light that came from her fingers, glowing softly in the dim light of the ship. Jack froze. He wasn't sure if he had imagined it, but he could have sworn she had just used some kind of power. He looked at her, his mind racing. What was that? How was that even possible, Lyra? He said cautiously, taking a step closer. What did you do just now? The girl's eyes flickered toward him, and then she quickly lowered her hand. She didn't answer, but the way she looked at him made Jack think that maybe she wasn't aware of what she had done. Maybe it was a reflex, something beyond her control. Jack didn't know much about aliens, wasn't sure what kind of species she was, or if she was even from this galaxy. But there was no denying that Lyra wasn't just some ordinary girl. She was different. There was power in her, something Jack had never seen before. It scared him. He had no idea what she was capable of, or what kind of danger they might both be in. The next few days passed in silence. Jack continued to work on the ship, and Lyra continued to watch him. She never spoke, but every now and then Jack noticed small changes in her behavior. She would stare at the walls for hours, her eyes filled with confusion or sadness. Other times she would hum a soft tune under her breath, a melody that Jack didn't recognize. Oh, it was beautiful, but it only made him feel more uneasy. Who was this girl? Where had she come from? Then one night, as Jack was repairing a broken panel in the cockpit, something changed. Lyra came up to him, walking slowly but steadily. Jack looked up, surprised to see her so close. Her eyes were filled with something new, something Jack had never seen before. Well, it was almost as if she was trying to communicate with him, to tell him something, Lyra. Jack asked softly, not sure if she would respond. To his surprise, she did. She raised her hand again, and this time, Jack saw a faint glow surrounding her fingers. It was brighter than before, and Jack couldn't look away. She was doing it on purpose this time. Before Jack could speak, Lyra's lips parted, and for the first time, she spoke. "Help, ... me ... She whispered, her voice barely audible. It was a soft, fragile sound, like a whisper carried by the wind. Jack's heart skipped a beat. He hadn't expected this. For days he had wondered if Lyra would ever speak, and now here she was, asking for help. But the way she said it, her voice trembling, as though she had been carrying the weight of the universe on her shoulders, told Jack that this was no simple request. She wasn't just asking for help to fix the ship. There was something else, something much bigger. "Of course I'll help you," Jack said, his voice steady. "I don't know what you need, but I'll figure it out. I promise." Lyra's eyes softened, and for a moment, Jack thought he saw a flicker of relief in her gaze. But then, just as quickly as it had appeared, it was gone. She lowered her hand and turned away from him, heading back to the corner of the room where she usually sat. Jack watched her for a moment, unsure of what to do next. What did she mean by asking for help? What was she running from? The ship hummed softly around. Them, the only sound in the quiet room? Jack thought about all the things he didn't know about Lyra, about her past, her people, and the dangers that seemed to follow her. He didn't know where she had come from or what had happened to her. But he knew one thing for sure. Whatever she had been through, it wasn't over. The moment he had found her in that broken ship, he had become part of her story. And now he had to help her finish it. Jack sat down in the cockpit, trying to focus on the repairs, but his mind kept drifting. Back to Lyra? What was her secret? What was she hiding? He couldn't shake the feeling that the ship and the girl were only the beginning of something much bigger. He glanced at the stars outside the window. The endless stretch of space that seemed so vast and unknowable. He had always wanted adventure. But now, as he looked at Lyra, he realized that adventure had found him. And he wasn't sure he was ready for what was coming next. The days following Lyra's quiet request for help felt different to Jack. The ship, once a simple project for him, now felt like a ticking clock. Every hour, it seemed, a new mystery emerged. Lyra's behavior was growing more unpredictable. Sometimes she would sit for hours in complete silence, staring out into the endless stars, lost in her thoughts. Other times, she would approach him quietly, her eyes filled with something Jack couldn't read, and he would feel the weight of her unspoken words. Jack tried to focus on fixing the ship, but he couldn't ignore the feeling that there was more going on than he could understand. Lyra had powers, that much was certain. She had shown him small bursts of light, strange flashes of energy, like nothing he had ever seen before. Yet, she didn't seem to know how to control it. Sometimes, the power would flicker out of her hands without warning. Other times, it would be as if she were testing it, unsure of what would happen next. One evening, as Jack worked on the ship's wiring, he heard the familiar sound of Lyra approaching. This time, however, there was something different in the way she moved. She was walking with more purpose, her steps steady and confident. Jack turned to see her standing at the doorway, watching him with an intensity he hadn't seen before. "Lyra," Jack asked, standing up from his workbench.
"What's
"Going on? You okay?" She didn't answer right away. Instead, she held up her hand, and for a moment, Jack thought she was going to show him another burst of energy. But this time, the air around her seemed to shimmer. There was no light, no glowing spark, just a strange, heavy stillness that filled the room. "I can feel it." Lyra finally spoke, her voice quiet but clear. "They're coming. I can feel them." Jack's heart skipped a beat. "Who's coming? What do you mean?" Lyra's eyes locked onto his, and for the first time, Jack saw fear in them. It was subtle, but it was there. The fear of someone who had been running from something for too long, never safe, always on the edge of being found. "They are hunting me," Lyra whispered. "They know I'm here. They'll stop at nothing to find me." Jack didn't know what to say. "Are they? What do they want with you?" Lyra shook her head slowly, as if the words were too painful to say. I can't tell you. Not yet. But they won't stop. They'll track me, and you. ... She paused, and Jack could feel the weight of her words pressing down on him. In danger now, too, she said, her voice breaking just a little. Jack didn't know what to do. His instincts told him to help her, to keep her safe. But now he realized that helping her might mean putting himself in the line of fire, too. He had no idea who or what these enemies were, but one thing was clear: they were dangerous, and they wouldn't hesitate to come after him if they knew he was involved with Lyra. I'm not going to leave you, Jack said, his voice steady, even though he felt the fear creeping in. You're not alone in this. Lyra looked at him, her expression softening for a moment. She seemed to believe him, but the fear still lingered in her eyes. Thank you, she whispered. But it's not just about staying safe. I need to stop them. If they find me, they'll destroy everything. They'll destroy you too. You can't protect me forever. Jack took a step closer, feeling the weight of her words. He didn't know what he was getting into, but he couldn't back down now. Not after everything. Not after seeing how scared she was. Lyra needed him, and that was enough for Jack. He had always wanted adventure, something beyond the boring routine life he had back on Earth, but he never imagined it would come in the form of a girl with mysterious powers, running from an unknown enemy. We'll figure it out, Jack said firmly. We'll fix the ship, and we'll get you out of here. You're not alone. Lyra nodded, but Jack could see the uncertainty in her eyes. She didn't believe things would be that simple, and neither did he. The more he learned about her, the more he realized how little he truly understood. Who were these people who were chasing her? What did she mean by destroy everything? And what role did he play in all of this? That night, Jack couldn't sleep. The ship was quiet, but the air felt thick with tension. Lyra was in her room, curled up on the small cot she had claimed as her own. Jack paced the small space, his mind racing with questions. He kept thinking about what Lyra had said about how they were coming for her. It felt like the calm before a storm, and Jack couldn't shake the feeling that time was running out. He knew they couldn't stay here forever. If someone was really hunting Lyra, then they had to leave before it was too late. But where could they go? How could they outrun enemies who could track them across the stars? Jack had no answers, and it made him feel helpless. He wasn't a soldier. He wasn't some trained warrior who could protect her from an army. He was just a mechanic, fixing ships and hoping to make a living. But something inside him refused to let go of the promise he had made to her. He would protect her, no matter the cost. He didn't know how, but he would figure it out. The next morning, Jack went to work on the ship again. Lyra stayed in her room, but Jack could feel her watching. She didn't say anything, but he knew she was thinking about their conversation from the night before. She had trusted him with her secret, and now? Jack knew there was no turning back. He would help her stop the danger that was coming, even if it meant risking everything he had. He didn't know where this would lead, or if they would even survive the fight ahead, but one thing was clear. Whatever happened next, they were in this together. The next few days felt like a blur. Jack and Lyra barely spoke about the danger she had warned him about, but the air around them was thick with unspoken tension. Jack worked on the ship, trying his best to repair it and get it running again. He had never worked so fast or so hard in his life. Every part of him was focused on getting them out of there before whatever was hunting Lyra found them. Lyra, for her part, had become quieter than ever. Jack noticed that she didn't seem to be eating much. She spent most of her time in her room, staring out the small window at the endless stars. Jack felt a sense of urgency grow inside him. He needed answers about the enemies chasing Lyra, about who they were and what kind of power they had. But Lyra wouldn't share anything more. She was afraid. It was clear to Jack that whatever her past was, it was something so terrible, she didn't want to speak of it. One night, as Jack was working on the ship's navigation system, a soft beep came from the communication console. Jack froze. It wasn't a normal signal, it was a distress beacon. Someone was sending out a call for help at first. Jack thought it might be a coincidence, but something about the signal felt off. It was too specific, too intentional. It was as if someone knew exactly where they were. He quickly checked the ship's location on the map. They were far from any major colonies or spaceports. The signal was coming from deep within uncharted space, somewhere Jack had never been. "Lyra," Jack said, his voice shaking slightly. "I need you to come here now." She appeared in the doorway, looking more alert than she had in days. Her eyes scanned the room quickly, her gaze landing on the blinking console. "What is it?" she asked softly, her voice cautious. "I'm not sure," Jack replied, his fingers hovering over the console. "Someone sent out a distress signal, but it feels like they're trying to lead us somewhere."
Ira
Stepped closer, her expression darkening. She didn't need to hear more. She knew exactly what Jack was implying. "Turn it off," she said urgently, her voice tight with fear. "Don't follow it. It's a trap. It's them." Jack hesitated. He didn't want to put them in more danger, but the thought of leaving someone in trouble made him uneasy. He had to be sure. "Do you know it's them?" "I can feel it," Lyra said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I can sense them. They're using the signal to draw us in. If we go there, we'll be walking right into their hands." Jack's heart sank. He had hoped it was a coincidence, but now he realized just how much danger they were in. Whoever was hunting Lyra knew exactly where they were. They were playing a deadly game. "We can't go there," Jack said, finally making up his mind. "We'll leave the signal behind and head in the other direction." Lyra nodded, her face still, tense with worry. But just as Jack began to shut down the distress signal, another beep interrupted him. This one was different. It was louder, more urgent, and it came from the same coordinates as before. "Someone's desperate," Jack muttered. He felt torn. Part of him wanted to ignore it and leave, but another part of him couldn't shake the feeling that someone might really need help. Before Jack could make another decision, the screen flickered. A new message appeared on the console. A message from an unknown source. "We know you have her. You can't hide from us. Surrender now, and we might spare you." Jack froze. His blood ran cold as he read the message again, each word sinking. And like a weight in his chest, "They know we're here," Jack whispered. His voice filled with disbelief. Lyra stepped back, her face pale. "They always find me. No matter where I go, they will always find me. They won't stop until they have me." Jack's hands clenched into fists. He wasn't going to give up. Not now. Not after everything. They had come too far to turn back. The message, though threatening, gave Jack one thing, an answer. He now knew who was hunting them, and that gave him a clear goal. "We're not going to surrender," Jack said, his voice filled with determination. "We're going to fight." Lyra looked at him, a mixture of fear and confusion in her eyes. "Fight? How? You don't even know who they are. You don't know what they can do." "I don't care," Jack said, his voice firm. "I'm not letting them take you." Lyra's expression softened. She had never expected someone like Jack to stand up to such danger, to put his own life at risk for hers. She had been running for so long, alone, always hiding from the past. But now, Jack had become her ally, a protector. For the first time in what felt like forever, she wasn't alone. "You don't have to do this," Lyra whispered. "Been running for so long? I don't want you to get hurt because of me." But Jack shook his head. "I made a promise to you. I don't break promises." Lyra stared at him, a tear slipping down her cheek.
Wait.
You don't have to," Jack replied, his voice softening. "Let's just get out of here and we'll figure it out together." With newfound resolve, Jack powered up the ship's engines and adjusted their course. They wouldn't go to the distress signal. They wouldn't follow the bait. Instead, they would go somewhere they could lay low for a while, somewhere safe. But Jack knew they couldn't hide forever. He had just made a dangerous enemy, and they were not going to stop until they got what they wanted. The ship hummed steadily as Jack and Lyra navigated deeper into space, leaving behind the threats that had found them. Jack wasn't sure where they were going, but it didn't matter. They had to move fast and stay ahead of whatever danger was coming their way. Lyra sat quietly beside him, staring at the stars outside the window. Her mind seemed far away, lost in thoughts Jack couldn't understand. She hadn't said much since their decision to leave the distress signal behind, But Jack could feel the weight of her silence. Jack knew she was scared. She didn't have to say it for him to know. The look in her eyes told him everything he needed to know. For so long, Lyra had been alone, running from something so dark and dangerous that she hadn't been able to trust anyone. Jack wasn't sure what it was, but he was beginning to see just how deep her fear ran. He couldn't ignore the nagging questions that had been haunting him. What was she running from? Who were these people hunting her? Why was she so important? He needed answers, not just for himself, but for Lyra. If they were going to survive this, they had to understand what they were up against. Lyra, Jack said, his voice gentle, trying to break the silence. You've been quiet. I know you're scared. I need to know more. Please tell me what's going on. Who are they? Why are they after you? For a moment, Lyra didn't respond. She kept her eyes on the stars, her face unreadable. But Jack could see the way her fingers clenched tightly in her lap, as though she was fighting something inside herself. He waited, his heart pounding in his chest. He knew this wasn't easy for her. It never was for anyone who had been running from something as big as this. Finally, she spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. They're not just after me, Lyra began, her words slow and careful. They're after my people, the ones who came before me, the ones who... created me? Jack's brow furrowed in confusion. Created you? What do you mean? Lyra looked at him then, her eyes filled with a mixture of sadness and shame. I'm not just an alien. I'm a weapon. Creation. My people. My ancestors. They were scientists. Engineers. They made me to be something... powerful. Something that could change the galaxy. Jack's mind raced as he tried to make sense of what she was saying. A weapon? But you're just you. How could you be a weapon? Lyra's eyes darkened as she looked away. I wasn't supposed to be a weapon. I wasn't meant to be used for destruction. But when the war started, when everything fell apart, they used me. They made me their weapon. The people who came after me, they want to finish what they started. They want to control me, use me to finish the job, to destroy everything. Jack's heart sank. He had known Lyra was different, but hearing her, the story made him realize just how much she had been through. She wasn't just a victim of circumstance. She was part of something much bigger. Something that had been set into motion long before she had ever met him. So these people who are hunting you, Jack said slowly, trying to understand. They're not just looking for you because you're an alien. They're after your power. They want to use you for war. Lyra nodded, her voice shaky. Yes, they don't care about who I am. They care about what I can do, and if they get their hands on me, they'll use me to destroy planets, to bring down entire civilizations. I can't let that happen. Jack felt a cold chill run down his spine. He had no idea the stakes were this high. He had thought he was just helping a girl who needed shelter. But now, he realized that helping Lyra could be the difference between life and death, not just for them, but for the entire galaxy. I'm not going to let them take you, Jack said firmly. I don't care how powerful they are. I promised you I'd protect you, and I meant it. Lyra turned to look at him, a mixture of gratitude and fear in her eyes. You don't understand, Jack. You can't stop them. They're too strong. They have ships, armies, and they won't stop until they have me. Jack clenched his fists, his jaw tightening. Then we'll make them stop. I don't care how strong they are. We'll find a way. Lyra shook her head, her eyes filled with sadness. You don't know what you're up against. God, you can't fight them. Unstoppable. For a long moment, Jack didn't know what to say. He had no idea what kind of enemy they were facing. But one thing he was certain of was this. He wasn't going to give up on Lyra. Not now. Not when they were this close. He couldn't leave her to face this alone. We'll figure it out, Jack said, his voice strong. We'll get through this. Together. Lyra didn't say anything. Instead, she leaned back in her chair, closing her eyes for a moment. She seemed lost in thought, her mind turning over the weight of everything she had told Jack. For a while, there was only silence. The hum of the ship, the only sound in the room. Then, suddenly, Lyra opened her eyes and looked at Jack. There was a fire in them now, a glimmer of something she hadn't shown before. "There is one place we can go," Lyra said, her voice filled with determination. "One place where they won't find us. It's far from here, hidden in the depths of space." "A place where my people once lived." Jack raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "Where is it?" "It's a planet," Lyra replied. "A forgotten world, but it's not just any world. It's where the secrets of my people are hidden. The knowledge we left behind. If we can get there, we might find a way to stop them. We might find a way to end this." Jack felt a spark of hope ignite within him. "Then that's where we're going. We'll head there right now." Lyra nodded, her expression serious. "It won't be easy. They're already looking for us, but it's our best shot. If we can reach it before they do, maybe we can finally end this." Jack's heart raced as he set the course for the hidden world. The danger was real, and the stakes were higher than he could ever have imagined. But with Lyra by his side, he felt a sense of purpose he had never known. Before, together, they would face whatever came their way. They would fight to the very end. The stars outside the window moved slowly, the ship cutting through space with a steady hum. Hands gripped the controls tightly, his mind focused entirely on the task ahead. Lyra sat beside him, her eyes scanning the endless expanse of space. Neither of them spoke. The silence was heavy, filled with the weight of everything they had learned, everything they were about to face. The planet Lyra had mentioned, the one her people had once inhabited, was located in a far corner of the galaxy. A place so hidden, so forgotten, that even the most advanced spacefaring civilizations had lost track of it. Lyra had told Jack that the planet held the key to ending the war that was being waged against her people, against her. If they could reach it, they might find the answers they needed, but getting there wouldn't be easy. The enemies chasing them were already on their trail. They wouldn't stop until they had found Lyra and captured her. For days, Jack and Lyra had traveled at full speed, keeping to the darkest corners of the galaxy, hoping to avoid detection. But Jack could feel the pressure mounting. Every minute, every hour, the danger grew closer. They couldn't outrun it forever. "Do you think we can make it?" Jack asked quietly, glancing at Lyra. She didn't look at him right away. Her eyes were fixed on the stars, but Jack could tell she was thinking, calculating. She had always been calm under pressure, but he could see the fear hiding just beneath the surface. She was scared, and for good reason. If they didn't reach the planet in time, they would be caught, and if they were caught, Jack didn't want to think about what would happen. "I don't know," Lyra replied softly, "but it's our only chance. If we don't get there, they'll find us. And once they do, they won't just capture me. They'll destroy everything." Jack felt a chill run down his spine. He had heard her say it before, but hearing it again made the reality of their situation even clearer. They weren't just running from something. Were fighting to survive, to protect not only themselves but the entire galaxy. He took a deep breath, trying to push away the fear that threatened to take hold. He wasn't going to let that happen. Couldn't. Not after everything they had been through. "We'll make it," Jack said, his voice firm. "I won't let them take you. We'll find the planet. We'll fight, and we'll end this." Lyra turned to him then, her eyes meeting his. For the first time in days, she smiled, just a small, almost sad smile. But it was enough. Jack felt a surge of warmth, a sense of hope he hadn't felt in a long time. They were in this together, and together they could face whatever came. Their way, the quiet hum of the ship continued as they pushed forward. Coordinates to the hidden planet locked in the navigation system. The journey had taken them far from Earth, far from everything Jack knew, but in a strange way he didn't mind. Being with Lyra, helping her, was more important than anything he had ever done before. But as they neared their destination, the calm was shattered. A warning beep sounded from the control panel, and Jack's heart skipped a beat. "They're here," Lyra whispered, her voice tight with fear. "They've found us." Jack didn't hesitate. He immediately set the ship into evasive maneuvers, pushing the engines to their limit. The enemy ships were closing in fast, their silhouettes appearing on the radar. They were outnumbered, and their ship was still damaged from the previous fight. Jack knew they couldn't outrun them for long. They'll catch us if we don't. Fight back, Lyra said, her voice steady now, though Jack could sense the urgency in her words. I can help, but we need to act fast. Jack's mind raced. He wasn't a fighter. He was a mechanic. Someone who fixed ships, not someone who fought battles. But now, there was no choice. He had to protect Lyra. He had to protect them both. Do what you can, Jack said, his voice determined. I'll handle the ship. With that, Lyra stood up, moving quickly to the back of the ship, where she had set up a small makeshift control panel. Jack watched her for a moment, then turned his attention back to the incoming ships. They were getting closer, their weapons. Powering up, he gritted his teeth and pushed the throttle forward, making a sharp turn to the left, narrowly avoiding the enemy's fire. The ship shuddered from the impact of a near miss, but Jack didn't slow down. He knew they couldn't afford to be caught. The enemy ships were relentless, following their every move. Jack could hear the crackle of Lyra's voice over the intercom, telling him to maneuver in ways he hadn't even thought possible. Her instructions were sharp, quick, and accurate, guiding him through the chaos of the space battle. She had been trained for this, even if she hadn't wanted to be. There. Too close, Jack said through gritted teeth. We need more time. I can give you time. Lyra's voice came through, calm but focused. But you need to trust me. Jack didn't question her. He had trusted her from the moment they met, and he wasn't going to stop now. Lyra's voice grew louder, and Jack felt a sudden surge of energy fill the ship. The control panels flickered, lights flashing as the ship seemed to come alive. A strange energy surged through the ship's systems, and Jack could feel the ship responding. Lyra was using her power, the power that had been hidden inside her. All along, the enemy ships started to slow, their weapons malfunctioning as Lyra's power interfered with their systems. Jack took advantage of the moment, firing back with everything he had. He wasn't sure how much damage they had done, but it was enough to give them a chance. In the distance, Jack saw the faint outline of the hidden planet. They were almost there. They just needed to hold out a little longer. We're almost there, Jack said, his voice steady now, despite the chaos around them. Just a little longer, Lyra. Lyra didn't respond, but Jack could feel the strength of her focus. As she pushed the ship's systems to their limit, the enemy ships were falling back, unable to maintain their pursuit. For a moment, there was only the sound of their ship cutting through space, the quiet hum of the engines and the calm of the unknown ahead. As they neared the planet's atmosphere, Jack let out a breath he didn't realize he had been holding. They had made it. They were safe at least for now. Lyra looked at him, her eyes filled with exhaustion, but there was a glimmer of something else, too. Relief. They had survived. And they were about to enter the heart of the secrets Lyra had been protecting all this time.